Welcome back, everyone, to the NFT Nation podcast, the most relatable and reliable NFT and crypto podcast in the nation. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined with Baltos Revenge, otherwise known as Kyle Austin. Kyle is one of the lead artists for the Natural Degenz collection, as well as the co-creator of Paper Plate Media. I'm very excited to learn all about Kyle's art, as well as his experience inside the NFT, crypto, and podcasting world. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kyle onto the show. How's it going, Kyle? Welcome to
Hey,
NFT Nation.
thanks a lot, man, for having me on. I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really interested to learn all about what you do inside the space, as well as kind of since we both run since you run multiple podcasts, and we share that, and we have that in common. I'm excited to kind of learn how much we have in common, just more than just podcasting. But before we hop into learning about your kind of NFT and podcasting experience, would you mind to kind of give the audience a brief explanation of who you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Kyle Austin, better known as a lot of people call me El Sheep on Twitter, but my artist tag name is Baltos Revenge. That name comes from my dog, whose name is Balto, and I was very clever with it, I know. But so basically, what I am is I'm an artist. I've been doing artwork for the past 20 years of just doing art, generally speaking. But NFT art for about, I would say, close to 2 years now. So that's kind of who I am as a person. I do. I would like to call myself a pretty busy individual in general because I have a full-time job where I work. I also do my podcasting on the side as well as my NFT stuff. It's a great time, and it gives me a lot of opportunity to like really try out new things and meet a bunch of really awesome people in the space, especially when it comes to the podcasting world as well as the NFT world, because there's just so many interesting individuals from just all corners of the world. But yeah, like that's just a little bit about me, generally speaking. And currently, I am the lead artist for the Natural Born Degenerates. So Natural Born Degens is well, we're working on kind of building it as a brand really for our NFT. But the first series came out where they're called Unicorns, basically, and we'll go more into that as well. But we're actually getting ready to drop our second series, which are going to be our Gullible Seagulls. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about what I do and kind of what I'm doing.
Awesome. Yeah, so if anyone in the audience has never heard of Kyle Austin or any of the work or his podcast, that's kind of a brief explanation of who he is, and I'm extremely excited, and I feel very lucky to have you on the podcast today. But kind of just to get started, aside from art and podcasting, what would you say are some of your hobbies?
Oh yeah, so definitely I am a big fan of just, well, I sing. That's one thing. I did music for quite a few years. I never recorded anything, but I really liked I was in choir and stuff in high school, and I still like to continue to sing and kind of record music on Instagram for fun. And that was always fun to do, and just, practice with songs, trying to work on my voice and stuff like that. That was one thing. I also really like playing TCG games. So like card games, my personal favorite is Magic the Gathering. It's one of my favorite hobbies in general because, for one, it's a collector's hobby. So I like the collectability of cards, and I like that there are, cards as well. I
Yeah.
also like the fact that I have a bunch of friends who also play. So that's pretty cool. And so I actually quite enjoy. It's a way to connect with some of my buddies who play out of state, since I live in a completely different state than they do.
Yeah, that's really cool. So especially kind of with my background as a little kid collecting Pokemon cards, I can definitely see how that ties into a lot of people's opinions of NFTs, and especially just collector's items in general. But kind of on that NFT topic, we'll kind of hop right into the bulk of this episode. And what I really want to learn from you is, how did you kind of get your first start with crypto? Well, maybe what was your first experience, or kind of just how did you get introduced to crypto?
So my first experience actually happened, to be honest with you, because I was bored. I was looking for a new hobby, something to kind of. I just graduated like college, I would say like 2 years ago at that point, and moving to a different state, you definitely get kind of lost in what you're interested in. And I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I kept seeing, I don't know if you're on YouTube a lot, but I kept seeing this like ad for like Robinhood on the Philip DeFranco show all the
Hmm.
time. He would constantly, he doesn't promote it anymore, but he used to promote it all the time. And I was like, this is really cool. Like I should look into like, stocks and all that kind of stuff. So actually I started in stocks. So I signed up for Robinhood and I started playing around in the stock market, playing with like Carnival Cruise Liners, MGM, back right before the actually COVID hit. And I actually bought a lot of those MGM and that one DraftKings actually really low. So I did
Hmm.
profit off of those. Granted, I lost a lot to penny stocks. You live and you learn.
Yeah.
Retail investor. You come in thinking that I can make a ton of money, and you can make a ton of money, but you can also lose all your money. So it's always playing it safe. But with that, I did kind of always. Bitcoin has been around, right, for a long time, and I was a techie in the space, right? Like I knew a lot about Bitcoin in a sense. Like I knew it, was something that people use as a form of currency. I didn't really understand cryptocurrency at the time, but I always found it interesting. And I was like, man, I get my hands on some at some point. But it always worried me with like, I wasn't techie enough to jump into an onion browser and like really like no, because I was at that time I was 14, 13, and I didn't really like the dark web idea of kind of jumping into a random thing and bidding a virus on my already slow PC at the time. So I was just like, I guess I don't need it. I don't, and who knows if it's something that'll ever be
Yeah.
worth anything. And I was wrong, of course, right? So I jump in. Keep in mind at this point, like I think Bitcoin at 2020 is sitting around like 18,000. I don't even think it's in like the 20s yet.
Yeah.
Um, and so I bought like $5 Bitcoin, and like I didn't understand buying and selling a lot of stuff, so I would just constantly like buy. I would go up like 10, 20, $100, and I'd sell and then buy again like when it lowered down and do it again. But the thing is with Bitcoin and crypto, that's just a lot of money that you're taking away from yourself with
Yeah.
capital gains taxes. But in during that too, I also saw Ethereum and Dogecoin. But Dogecoin was I like to call it the first official cryptocurrency I bought, because I did buy Bitcoin for a little bit, but I didn't really understand it. Not at the time, right? And then as I jump into like Dogecoin, I actually had jumped in when it was sitting at like 0.000 like 1 3. It was really really low at the time, and I thought it was awesome. For one, it's memeable. Two, it was very steady at the time, even though it was really really cheap. It was really really steady. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I could have it and kind of hold it like a savings account. Like that was kind of neat. And I see there's like a big community around it. At least on Reddit. There wasn't a huge community on Twitter at the time. Like there was literally nobody. Like you didn't even really know who like the actual developers and stuff were, like unless you did like deep research. Now it's very clear, like Billy Marcus, Jackson Palmer, like all of those people are important aspects, to overall to Dogecoin as a whole. But so I was playing around with that. I got kind of involved in the Reddit community a little bit. I was playing around with stock twits a lot, with some of their forums, and it was just really fun. But I kind of got like, we kind of wanted to rally together to kind of build value for Dogecoin. And I constantly would message creators, people on Reddit, things like that, to be like, hey, how can we like find value in this thing? Like I think it's really cool, and I think there's a lot to be done. And there was people all the time who would kind of be like, yeah, it's only going to be worth what it's worth, right? And I didn't really think that was the case, and obviously I was right. Looking back at it, um, but at the time I had 100,000 coins, and then I decided to sell it when it went up to like 0.005, which was like $200 at the time in like returns, which I was like, great, awesome, that's the most money that I've made in crypto so far, so that's cool. And then like I was like, well, I'm not gonna touch Dogecoin for a while. I don't know if it's gonna do anything. And then I saw the TikTok pump, and then I saw what power it could have if people kind of rallied around it. And I was like, you know what? Like, forget it. I'll just put $10 and I'll see what happens. Like, so I put $10 in, and I let it ride. I let it ride all the way to the top.
Hell yeah.
I didn't expect it to blow like it did, but I wrote it like all the way to 73 cents.
Oh
And I
wow.
unfortunately didn't sell it. I should have, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Looking back on
I
it
remember.
now.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but like I
Yeah.
remember seeing the initial pump, and I think I had about, I want to say $200 worth, and I sold around the 55 cent range. I sold about 80% of what I had,
Mhm.
just because it was at that point I'd
I think
already
it's a
like
good range
doubled
to
my
sell too.
I'd already like doubled my money, so it's like, you know what, I'm gonna just in case
Mhm.
it tanks, I'll sell kind of my initial investment and then kind of just let it ride. So that's what I did,
I
and
do
I was
think
pretty happy. But I was like, damn, I left a lot of games on the table. But you know, you can't really complain, especially in the
you
market.
did.
Especially in the market we're in right now. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
I was
complain.
gonna say you did, but at the same time, like those, because that's the thing, right? I think you also exited at a really good point because had you not exited like I did, you'd actually be down right
Yeah,
now. Granted, long-term gains. I had no plans to sell any of my assets for the next 5 to 10 years. I'm what you would call a long-term holder,
mm,
in a lot of sense. So when I get something, I hold it for a long time. That's
yeah,
my plan, because I understand dips and I understand gain, like taking gains and I'll take it when I can, right?
hmm.
But this whole thing, like I kind of knew I had a gut feeling with SNL happening that it was gonna tank it, and I
Oh
just
yeah,
for
I
some
remember. I
reason
remember
didn't.
sitting there, seeing Elon Musk in a stupid, was it
Wario
Wario
costume.
outfit, and I was
Yes.
like, oh god, this
I was
isn't
like,
good.
I was like,
And I
damn it.
remember just going on my phone and just seeing the graph and seeing the chart of just a straight shot down because there was so much hype for that episode. It's just crazy to see. I think everyone was just expecting it to go up,
It was
and
brutal.
people, and once it didn't, and like once the show started, and people, I guess people were just expecting it to go up once SNL was on and live, and I think people were like, you know what, didn't pump, I'm done, out, and
Yep,
it
I think that's how it was.
just just
It was a lot of.
decimated the
I think
entire market.
it was a lot of like big players in the game too, just
Yeah.
using it as an opportunity, too. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a guy like Barry Silbert, right? He is known as a pretty big shorter. I forget what actual hedge fund he's a part of, but he openly was like, "Yeah, you guys have had your fun. Welcome to crypto." He's like, "I'm about we're gonna short you. We're putting a pretty big
Yeah.
short on you," and he's made his money. He definitely has. And it's one of those things where, the thing is, you should never jump in, and this is always something that like I always warn investors of, especially new investors, as they jump in. It's just never jumping in with more money than you're willing to lose. And you play with gains, right? That's the big
Yeah.
thing. You play with gains, and that's what's going to really lead to your success in this market. Um, don't play with losses. Buy when things are low, and then start just being cognizant. Don't get attached to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just sell,
Yeah.
and you'll be successful. But I see so many people like spend so much money, like their whole house, like stupid amounts of money
Yeah.
on crypto in general. Dogecoin being a big one, but I've seen people lose a lot of money as a direct result of betting the house, and that's the one thing most investors will tell you not to do,
Yeah.
because let's just be honest. Like, yes, you could be a millionaire, cool, but if you don't sell, you're just losing. Like the Dogecoin millionaire. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
was just about to kind of mention them when you talked about don't get attached to anything. Like
yeah, it's just a
that
mistake.
guy, the Doge millionaire, he made his entire personality around holding Dogecoin, and it messed with him because he could have had a completely different life. He could have set himself up for, he could have retired if he sold.
Yeah,
And I
he was sitting
remember
on almost
just,
$3 million.
yeah, he's at one point. I remember watching a YouTube video where he was interviewed, and I was just sitting there like, man, you haven't even sold your initial investment. It's
Yeah,
like what the? It just blew my mind.
yeah. He was
But
talking with
obviously, everyone's different. But wow,
Graham Stephan and Andre
yeah,
J. I remember
I
that.
think
They're
it's,
they're
yeah,
great. I followed them. I
yeah.
really really
Those are
liked
some
it.
of the people talking about them too. I think that's a lot of people, or the two guys that really helped a lot of people get into personal finance in the kind of COVID quarantine era. I mean, they're still making content now, and they still make great content, especially just personal finance. I think they're kind of like a millennial Dave Ramsey. They're more understanding of kind of what everyone goes through on
I agree. I
a
agree.
day-to-day level.
Because I think Dave Ramsey is an excellent analyst. I think
Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about when it comes to just general financial literacy.
yes, exactly. Like
But he's a little how would I put it? Outdated. He's not outdated because
yeah,
his stuff is
it's
still
just
relevant. He just is kind of out of touch, if that makes sense,
mhm.
with the
like
average
he
investor.
Yeah, especially with it's obviously good. His message is that don't spend money you don't have, like don't make stupid purchases, like don't use a
Hmm.
credit card. But then you have to realize like having credit is so important in today's world. Like you're
Absolutely.
not gonna be able to get a home loan if you don't have a credit history of multiple years and don't have a good credit history. And obviously he didn't grow up in the student loan crisis era that a lot of people are kind of entering their personal finance journey with.
And still
So,
living through it. Yeah, like
yeah, exactly.
it's no plans of disappearing anytime soon
Yeah,
either. That's the
yeah.
crazy thing. But yeah, I
See,
totally understand that because like, and you think of it from a perspective of, even if the markets, let's hypothetically say, because I want to bring in as a hypothetical, right, that the financial housing markets and real estate markets were to like collapse, right, which could happen. People don't think it could happen, but it could definitely happen. There's definitely a kind of bubble, in my opinion, um, over time, especially wanting as somebody who wants to buy a home. As interest rates continue to go up, prices are going up too, and eventually something's gonna give. And when it does, it could be, this fall, it could be 2 years from now. But when it does happen, like you need to make sure you're in a good spot financially as a whole to if you especially if you buy a house to recover from those losses, and to to keep your house for a while because let's say you bought a $300,000 home, if things are to turn the way that the rest of the markets are turning, your $300,000 home is worth $130,000 now. What do you do? Like, especially if you're buying high like that, and especially as interest rates continue to go up, because the problem is the interest rates will still go up, and you'll still pay off of that $300,000 purchase that you made just because your home went down $130,000, and
yeah.
value mean that you're going to be paying any less because you still have
Mhm.
$300,000 to pay.
Yeah,
So what do you do?
yeah. That's crazy. I mean, it's personal finance is a topic that it's something that everyone views differently. Some people view that they have to invest every penny. Some people are going to be like, you know what, I can work all my life and continue to pay
Hmm.
my bills that way. It's weird because I'm obviously I don't talk about my personal kind of life much, but I'm looking to like get a finance degree because that's what I enjoy. That's kind of like why I started the podcast. This is just like the fun
Hmm.
part of finance, and it's really interesting to see how everyone kind of deals with that. But
Yeah.
to get back onto the topic at hand, that was a good little would you call it, a
Like a
little
side
ramble?
side
Yeah,
topic.
a little side topic about how we both kind of felt going through the little financial personal finance space. But kind of with that out of the way,
Hmm.
obviously you're an artist, and we can get more into your art and what you do and everything like that. But can you talk about maybe your history with NFTs, how you got introduced to them, and yeah, just kind of start there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, of course, that actually still stems from the Dogecoin community, believe it or not, which is kind of interesting because, a lot of it ended up working that a lot of people, especially in spaces and stuff, and Twitter spaces and people that are kind of involved in that, a lot from coin to coin, right? And a lot of them ended up moving from Dogecoin to Ethereum, and with Ethereum specifically playing with the NFT market. When I first heard about NFTs, I didn't really understand them. Not initially. I had an idea, and I was like, "This is kind of cool if they can figure out how to let it take off." Like, but I didn't really get it. You know what I mean? I was like, digital collectibles. Like, personally, I like in my mind too, as somebody who enjoys TCG, for instance. I like having something to hold in my hand, right? As like, in this, I can say I have this, I own this. This is valuable. Like, I
Yeah.
can tell you that it is. Um, it's a little more complicated when you move into a market with utility based digital collectibles because it's not something that's tangible, right? You can't touch it. You can't you just can't. You can't do that. That's not really how it works. You can own it in a wallet, and the wallet can be tied to a blockchain. But if you're talking to the average person, they don't really get it, right? But as I dug deeper, my mind was like, there's definitely money to be made here. Like, I can definitely see people are interested in it. And honestly, like, I think my art's pretty cool. Like, I really want to like practice more of my digital art and stuff like that. So let me just try it and see, put stuff out there and see what happens. So initially I tried to create, first thing I did was I uploaded all of them just for fun. And I sold a couple of them, which was pretty cool. But I wanted to actually play around with the digital space. And first thing I did was I created a line called Petty Puppets. And they were these puppets that you could like have on the blockchain. I just thought it was cool. I didn't see anything like that in the space at the time. And that was like about a year and a half ago when I did that. And I'm sure there's hundreds now, to be honest with you, of puppet NFTs. But at the time there was zero. I looked. So I had done the Petty Puppets line, and it was a blast. I got to play around with a bunch of different like color palettes and kind of just really get back into loving art again. Like, because
That's awesome.
yeah, it was cool because it was something that was super unique as an artist, because there was a time where I really enjoyed doing art, like really in high school was when I was at my peak, in my opinion. Well, I feel like I'm at my peak now, but back then I'd always thought of myself as my peak in high school because I was drawing all the time. I loved it. It was one of my favorite things to do. I'm left-handed, so I constantly had like graphite like on like the palm of my hand from just constantly drawing with a pencil, things like that. And I would draw all kinds of things. From Pink Panther as like a gangster with like, you know, a gold chain, stuff like that. I would draw all kinds of random stuff like that, like because I had a lot of friends who liked that kind of stuff. They were really into the graffiti stuff, and I was super into graffiti. I just thought it was really one of the cool, like one of my biggest and favorite like artists out there is Banksy. I just think I think it's awesome.
That's dope.
And I always was like, man, it would be great to be like a professional graffiti artist. How cool is that? But then it kind of like that dream kind of died in college. But so like it kind of like helped bring it back. And I actually felt it was also in like a brain fog for a couple years where I wanted to draw stuff, but like I just didn't have like anything in mind to actually draw. So I was like, it's over. That's done. But overall, actually reignited that flame of like, you actually have like a talent and you should just keep expressing it. And so I put it out there, just really hoping somebody would like it, and then not, because at the time like I didn't have any money. A lot of my money was like tied up in investments and other things, and I'm also married, so you know I have to make sure everything's running properly and smooth. I can't just throw all my money into the market. So like obviously Ethereum and stuff at the time like was really expensive when it came to gas fees to even put your art out there. So I went through Matic on OpenSea, and yeah, it went really well actually, at least from the beginning. I had made about $400 on my little creations, and I had about 20 of them, and I think like half of them sold. So it was awesome. So I felt really good about it, like for that first time. And then from there, I ended up meeting this guy on Twitter Spaces actually, which jump those who are listening. It's not what it used to be. There was a point where it was really awesome to really, you could meet some really cool people on there, but now it just really varies.
Yeah.
They're kind of little live podcasts basically, but with like everybody, like anybody could jump in, anybody could be on one. You know, it was pretty cool. But you know, I met this guy, his name was Golden X, and we were kind of talking a little bit, just kind of casually, and then we kind of started talking about NFTs a little bit, and he was talking about how he likes NFTs a lot, and that's what he was like into. And I was telling him that I'd like do art and stuff like that, so I showed him some of my art, and he bought one of my pieces, and then he was kind of like, hey, like, by the way, like, I'm actually kind of building like a little startup like company where like we work with other NFT artists and creators and coders and stuff like that, and we help people kind of fill in the blanks that are missing in like an art project. And I think you would be like really, really cool for like this project that we're working on. And I was like, wow, that's neat. Try it. So we do it, and I meet a guy, his name's Eric. And he's actually like the mind behind Natural Degenz. He had this idea. Basically, it was a stick figure drawing at the time of like, this is what I want for a unicorn, and this is kind of like, can you make my vision happen? And I was like, this cool. This is cool. This feels really businessy. This is kind of neat. But then me
Yeah.
and him got really like into it, and we started working together, like, and like really like developing like a friendship. And then we really started to kind of really figure out what we liked and what we liked to create. And then we ended up creating like unicorns, and unicorns were one of my one of my personal favorite pieces. At first, I had no idea if people were gonna like them, to be honest with you, because the idea was just like, can you make me something that's like rougher around the edges? I don't want like this cutesy NFT because people have already done that. That like, people do that all the time. There's one that looks like everything. There's a bunch of apes in the space. There's a bunch of dogs in the space. Like, let's do something kind of unique. And so we started from like scratch. Literally, like, I made this really cute donkey basically with like a toilet roll tied to his like head to make him look like a unicorn. Like, that was the idea. And it was just a very simple design, cute design. He's like, can we go a little like more intense? And so I made him crazy looking, and he changed the color, made him look more like a donkey. And then eventually it like became a unicorn, and the unicorns are very intense, very much inspired by you live in Kentucky, so you may know the Corvette Museum and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know the artist Ratfink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ratfink is actually one of my favorite artists of all time.
That's so cool.
And I love that kind of like really intense graffiti kind of. It's almost like we call it ugly art, but it's not ugly. Like, if you really understand the subjectivity of art, like, it's not ugly at all. It's actually very, very well detailed. It's just meant to elicit a different reaction. And that's kind of what unicorns are inspired by. And so we, met up with a coder, and we've kind of actually developed a team outside of Golden at this point, just with people that we've gotten to meet over time. But it was my first time ever like creating a generative art NFT. I had never done that before, and that was interesting. That was super interesting, just because it doesn't work like creating one giant piece and then creating a second giant piece and a third giant piece. That's what I had thought initially what that looked like, and I was like, that's so much work. But really what it is you create like a base outline, or two base outlines depending on what you want to do, and then you create traits around those outlines, build on and create these like pieces. So a lot of them, like, that's why a lot of like generative art, when you look at it, especially like 3D generative art and stuff like that, sometimes looks like it's like paper, like copy paste, kind of almost like they just like stuck something on there, because
especially like the 10K kind of released where they all kind of look the same. It's just like small details that are
exactly
changed.
And honestly, I hated that. I hated it so much. Like, even like, and it's not the shit on Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? But even like things like Bored Ape Yacht Club, like it there are certain things where you look at it and you're like, I could have did that a little better. I could have added something that was more unique. But people seem to love it.
Talking about that, sometimes I'll see on Twitter like people that are just be like just like a parody of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, just like a single NFT. Now, it's not, it won't even be an NFT, it'll just be a picture someone made. I'll be like, wow, that looks so good, like, compared to like just the basic Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yeah.
Granted, that artist is probably a multi-millionaire now, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Multi-billionaire, to be honest with you. That guy, who knows how much money he ended up making? But whoever did it, like, freaking props, like, because that was money to be made there.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no idea. But yeah, no, to kind of stem back on that, like, generative work, I didn't want my generative work to look like it was copy pasted. I wanted it to be something that like looked very unique and still kind of pushed an art style that people don't see often, which is like what I like to call trash art, which you probably heard of being in the space for a little bit, which is like kind of an ugly art, but with like a really nice visual aesthetic. So like unicorns are ugly. Like, that's what they're meant to look like. They are not meant to look beautiful or pretty. But if you pay attention and you dig deep and you kind of zoom in on things, I took time, a lot of time, hours, days, to just make sure and perfect every single crevice of like every single part of the piece. And I think that shows whenever we like look at the art now. And it was so much fun, to be honest with you. Like cleaning everything up, making it like really special. Like it was super super cool. And Mint came along, and my first Mint was super exciting. I had never done anything like that before. We had not never set up a Mint before. And it started off like a little rocky. I think a lot of this was new. This was the first time a lot of us had ever done it. So we just kind of like crossed our fingers and we're like, let's see what happens. And people actually really loved Lunicorns. Like we had been promoting things for a long time, like since last August. Like I've been working on it for months. We opened it, we launched it in January, but we've been working on it for months. And in the meantime, we were building like the following from scratch, like Twitter. I remember there was a time where we had like 6 followers and we had like 130 like people we were following, and we're like, is this gonna take off? Are people gonna be interested in this? And I remember one of the first panels. Um, I remember one of the first panels being like, "Do you like this art?" And a lot of people were like, "No." And I was just like, "Oh no." But lo and behold, we developed a following around it, and eventually, like our following kind of outgrew our followers, like on who we're our followers outgrew who we were following eventually, and we started to kind of really build like a brand. We did like a ton of art contests, and we did a ton of like which we actually, if you look on our website, there's a fridge, and all the post-its on the fridge are like people's art that they've done of our Lunicorns and stuff, which is really cool. We really like that kind of stuff, and we would give out a token. And at the time, these people had no idea what the token was going to be able to do. They were just doing it because they really liked the product, and they thought it was cool. And it was, at the time, it was free to get this kind of thing and just kind of see what happens. And that ended up being our token that we use actually as our big utility, which is not going to make it, NGMI token, which I'll talk about in like a second. But basically from there we minted, and it was pretty. I would say it was a success, especially for my first mint. We sold out our first phase of 1,000 Lunicorns in 6 hours.
Oh wow,
that was awesome. There's a total
That's
of
really impressive.
4,296. So we sold out our first one in 6 hours, and that was super cool. And it made me feel like super, super like excited. I was like, oh wow, people really like this. Like this is really neat. I don't really care about floor price and stuff. I want people to like it because we're bringing a good product at the end of the day. So I just like watched constantly, and then we did phase 2. Phase 2 slowed things out a lot. We're actually technically still in phase 2. So that was the reality that set in, right? Like the first initial phase was awesome because there was a hype around it, but it sold out really fast and it was really cool. Second phase, it didn't sell out as fast. It's still not sold out, but it's just because in a lot of ways, like I think we made some mistakes along the way, which I'm okay with talking about. Like I think one is I think we got too comfortable with how high we were gonna start our mints off, because we minted really low. Initially. We minted at like 0.2 e-gold, and then we went from 0.2 for like people that were on our whitelist to 0.42, and then from 0.42 we went to 0.69 to kind of stick with like our theme of being just a very memeable NFT. But with that being said, 0.4 to 0.6 is a pretty big jump, and even though you get 2 NFTs with your first initial mint, for some people that like may have kind of scared them off, I think initially, especially with it being a new NFT that people really didn't see doing much yet. At the time, we were still really we weren't building our utility. Our utility was set, but it was getting it launched and ready to go, because we wanted to kind of just get people like settled and kind of figure out what they're doing, help them kind of accumulate this NGMI token. And then from there, we were going to launch our staking mechanism, and then also build onto our actual utility, which is a marketplace. And so the utility, and I'll talk about this, which I think it's pretty cool, and it's not something that you can do in every blockchain in every space. Basically it's called the Degenz auction, and how it works is we bought a ton of NFTs with our liquid that was meant. It was always in our white paper. We call it our brown paper, but it was always in our white paper. It was always something we knew we were going to do. And so what we do with these NFTs is we allow them to basically cycle them back into the community through our token NGMI. So when you earn this NGMI, you can actually use it to bid on some of these projects. And some of these projects range from like new creators that are in the Elrond space all the way up to, there are projects we've done. Like there's a project called Nojin, and they have these dragons called Nogons, and a lot of them are a little bit cheaper now, but they go from like anywhere between $500 to $1,300. And then there's some called like Elrond Apes, which go for like $500 right now, but they were also going for around $1,200 at the time.
Oh, wow.
There's a whole bunch of different ones that we've auctioned off, by just being kind of early to some of these mints and just kind of utilizing the mints to kind of bring a utility, so that way people who may have missed the boat on some things could like have an opportunity to like jump in and kind of really get connected to the Elrond space without spending a ton of money.
That's really cool. I like to see that you all are kind of giving people the opportunity to hop in, even though they weren't there initially. Because that's really how a lot of the NFT collections, especially just the community, will grow, is that everyone gets an equal opportunity to kind of start on the same path, if that makes sense. Just because,
Absolutely.
especially with something like, I don't know, I want to say like a Bored Ape Yacht Club, where it's really hard for someone to actually get into it unless you've been in for a while. I mean, there's just obviously just like a major price disadvantage to trying to get in to the Bored Ape Yacht Club, but
Absolutely.
just it's really nice to see. That's one of the favorite things I like to see from NFT collections, is that they are allowing more and more people to get in at the ground floor, like with equality, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And kind of the thought process behind our whole brand, right, is competency hidden behind like foolishness, if that makes sense. Like we're a silly NFT at the end of the day. Like we're funny, we meme a lot, we're constantly messing with people and having a good time, and everybody like that's on it. You've probably seen some of our like Discord and stuff in there. It's a fun Discord, but when people want to talk, like we're always open to talk. And that's kind of what we always had it for. We didn't want to do a bunch of like giveaways and like, oh, let's do some like spam the Discord or spam Twitter and like get our name out there. Like that's just like it's a type of marketing I don't like personally, and it's a type of marketing I don't think for the long term is successful for your project. I think building the project and then building a good community, a community that feels comfortable to talk and reach out to its creators, is really going to be where we win at the end of the day. And so when I mean foolishness, it's competency kind of hidden behind foolishness. We're not like amateurs in the NFT space, or realistically amateurs in the crypto space as a whole, because yes, it was our first NFT mint, but we've been around the NFT market for, at this point, years. A lot of us have been doing it 1, 2, 3 years depending on who it was. Our actual like tokenomics person, which her name's Pippi, she is tokenomics genius. To be honest, she's really, really smart. She understands how it works to kind of build a small economic, token when it comes to like our not going to make it token. It has the full understanding of inflation and how kind of to what can we build to where the inflation is like still running at like a healthy pace, versus when we need to kind of like find ways to move things around to make it work to where we're still having a healthy market within our our brand, right? And we have like really competent developers as well. Like our developers know what they're doing and know how they're building. Like Boris, he's actually he's an amazing like just creator, like and developer in general, and he's been working like with at this point he's kind of shown he works on a thing called EGLR. Let me see if I can find it. It's and I'll send it to you so that way you can kind of like check it out. But I'll send, I'll just send it to you after, and you can add it in the show notes if you want to.
Perfect.
That's just something to check out. But he built basically a system, and I don't remember what the name of the total system is. I'll have to look it up. But it's when you click on it, you can see top gainers, top losers. You can see like when you can click on specific projects, you can look at specific wallets. Like you can do all of that in this thing. Like that's in this,
so cool.
It's great, and like he's helping us build out our our system. He's helping us with some of our future, utilities that we're wanting to build. Like we have the staking mechanism right now, which was built, but he's kind of helping perfect it. He's helping it, make it work. We have a system we call headlocking, which I could go into, which he's also working on getting perfected. He's been revamping the entire the entire and then of course, I gotta also give my props to Abo. His name's Alex Abomination on Twitter. He's our smart contract dev, and the guy's a genius.
I might need to have some of those people on the podcast. I might need to get in touch with them. They seem very
great.
Yeah, they seem very, very intelligent people in the space, and I think I could learn a lot from them. But continue on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. But that's what I'm saying. Like when we talk about we aren't amateurs, we're not. Yes, the art looks kind of silly to a lot of people, but it's supposed to look like that. I want it to be something that's welcoming, in a sense, something that's almost an entry level to understand the bigger aspects of blockchain technology and kind of what we're wanting to build in the futures of NFTs and what they could provide, which is utility. And I don't for right now it's digital utility, but real world utility is where NFTs go.
Exactly. Eventually. I think me and you kind of see eye to eye, especially with that, because how I look at NFTs is that yes, a lot of NFTs might fall due to kind of just it being a JPEG and it being tied to pretty much nothing. But how I view NFTs surviving, and not only surviving but prospering in a new economic environment, is that with NFTs have to lead to something. They have to be something bigger than itself. It has to be bigger than a line of code. And I think there's a lot of collections that are doing stuff to make a use case for NFTs. Like a great example I like to use is the Party Horses collection, where if you minted a pre-mint bourbon or a certain mixed drink NFT, you were eligible to receive a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon. That's something that encourages people to purchase the NFT and join the community. And how I view the community aspect of NFTs is that that's almost the most important thing, because without a community there's really no point to the NFTs other than people just shilling and maybe just trying to make a quick buck here and there. But if you want to survive, you got to have community, because those are the people that are going to continue to push the message as well as continue to hold and even mint more.
100%. And honestly, I'm glad you brought up Party Horses, because I think Party Horses is because you and I are both from Louisville, right? We both have gotten to actually really enjoy. I don't know, enjoy the benefits of Party Horses in general. So I have some friends in the space that are kind of in crypto here in Louisville, and they're the ones who told me about Party Horses initially. And when I signed up, I was like, oh yeah, this is a competent, really competent NFT. They have a really cool idea. And I was more than happy to mint a drink. I minted the champagne.
Yeah. I minted the bourbon neat, if that makes you. Yeah, I wasn't old enough to actually collect it, and I wasn't in town either, so I never got the bottle, but I still minted it, and I'm still eligible as soon as more come in. So I'm pretty excited.
I was gonna say, I wonder if you can have somebody scoop it for you, so that way you can enjoy it on your 21st.
My plan is, I think, if they won't let me do it, I'll just transfer it to my brother's wallet and send it to him, and then he can pick it up for me. So
then you can break it open on your 21st.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's just a little special, a present to wait for, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
cool.
No, but yeah, no, I really liked it. I unfortunately was priced out of the actual Party Horse mint, just because it was $500, and I just didn't have it in ETH at the time, because ETH is expensive.
Yeah, I'm in the same horse with, or I'm in the same boat. Sorry, with that. But yeah, we are a relatable podcast here. So yeah, I was priced out as well.
Absolutely. But I mean, honestly though, I did like what they were doing, and I think they have so far brought a really good product. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring for the next few years. Can they continue to kind of bring value to it and kind of build it, because it was kind of built around the actual Kentucky Derby, and built around having some of these events. And I know they're planning on doing more, but I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm interested to see kind of what they do with the project for the next few years, because I really did find a lot of interest in what they're doing. I actually wanted them on my podcast, but they were super busy, and so I was like, okay, it's fine, I get it.
Yeah,
we just couldn't think of time to get it done.
I got in contact with Chris Wiedmeyer, who's one of the kind of founders of it, and I was actually able to have him on the podcast. It's one of our most famous episodes. Well, I don't know if you can say famous, but most viewed, I'll say. But it was really great to sit down with those guys, and it was a different vibe because I minted one of their NFTs and then I talked to them, so it felt like, I don't know, I was kind of just like a part of the community, because that's what kind of happens when you mint an NFT. You feel just more part of it. It was
Absolutely,
really cool.
for sure. And honestly, I think there is so I guess we can go into a side topic here, because I think it's an important thing, is cross chain. So we've talked about this. We haven't really brought it up on the podcast, but we talked off thing. So Lunicorn's natural point Degenz is actually not on the Ethereum blockchain. It is actually on the Elrond blockchain, which is a completely separate network.
I've been wanting to kind of get into that. I was just about to ask a couple questions about your experience with using the Elrond blockchain and everything. So
for sure,
yeah, just go right ahead.
So first and foremost, I think people from the Ethereum space should be afraid to go cross chain. I think it's important to actually go and experience, buying an NFT from a different blockchain, so you can actually see, where the value really lies in a lot of things. Yes, Ethereum's the most popular, but right now it's not the most sustainable. There are a lot of, just as there are with every blockchain has their issues and every blockchain has their benefit. I love the Elrond network personally. For one, as just a general thing, gas fees are pretty much non-existent. I think I'd maybe pay 10 cents for gas to buy an NFT or to trade stuff around. It's nothing. It's minute, in a lot of ways. But that's a lot of blockchains, right? So Solana's the same way, and Cardano's the same way. They're not expensive to actually buy NFTs through those blockchains as well. But with Elrond, what I really like, and it's a very unique aspect of it, is the aspect of being able to truly own your NFT. One thing that was big, kind of I would say provider, it was a big okay, we're going in the right direction here, was true ownership. And what I mean by that is, in Ethereum, when you own an NFT, you don't really own it, if that makes sense.
You're owning you're owning the map to the treasure. You're not exactly owning the treasure.
Exactly. You own basically the smart contract. You own a portion of it, a very small amount, almost like a stock, if that makes sense. But you don't actually own the NFT itself. But with Elrond, you do, and that's actually done through a specific build, which is known as a sharding, 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 breaking sharding of glass, things like that. So what it does is it splits the contract easier and more scalable builds. So whenever you get an NFT, it's really yours. We cannot change it. Once it splits and goes to specific wallets, things like that, goes to the blockchain, you can't touch it anymore. Not as a creator. Which means I can't alter anything. I can't go in and be like, you know what? I'm gonna just pull a Raccoon Society and just give everybody bones. I'm just gonna do that. You can't do that on Elrond, which provides a little bit of a safety net there. But to caveat, just like every other blockchain, there are plenty of scams and rugs, just like there are everywhere, and they are annoying. But one thing I will say I also like about the Elrond network, before I jump into more potential things to just be on lookout for if you were to jump in, is the community. Awesome. The community is tighter than I've ever seen a community of NFT creators. Everybody knows everybody. There's still hundreds of thousands of people who are in this, millions even, that are in Elrond and that play around in the network. But all the creators kind of know one another, and everyone's kind of aware, and everyone's willing to like help each other out, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because we're all building together, right? And I think that's where we've seen some like success through that. um, Nobody's unreachable, if that makes sense, like it is in like the Ethereum space. If you wanted to talk and like provide like some things, like let's say like you looked at something, you're like, you guys can improve this, like just send it to one of the people, they'll look and they might actually like take you up on it as an idea of like, here's a way to like better scale like your mints going forward, like things like that. Like people like to like receive those, they want to get better. That being said,
Yeah.
some of in terms of negatives, just to kind of be realistic, it's the Wild West in the NFT space as a whole, but definitely on the Elrond network, because we don't have an open sea, if that makes sense. There's not a safe place, quote unquote safe place, to really buy NFTs. There's a few options that are created by developers that are looking and interested in the space, but there's not like a full one that's kind of been created by the Elrond developers just yet. It's being built, but it's not done yet. But there's basically three that are pretty big, which is Frameit.gg, Dead Rare being probably one of the biggest ways to buy and sell, and the other one is Trust Market, and those are like the three. But there's of course like some issues with certain aspects of those builds, being they're kind of built anonymously. You don't really know who those creators that build those marketplaces are, so there's a little bit of marketplace trust that you have to have and instill, especially as a creator. But I mean, we've had a great time, really, and it's fun. You just have to kind of trust the process.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Sometimes you can't get everything you want with an NFT collection or with a cryptocurrency or even with a marketplace. You kind of have to take what you can get sometimes, especially with a small collection or anything like that. Like sometimes people complain about how OpenSea isn't decentralized when it's the biggest marketplace in the entire NFT like market, and there's been like stuff with coming out about insider trading with OpenSea as well. So it's like,
Which is super
what do you
sketchy.
want? It's like you got to pick. You gotta
Yeah.
pick. You gotta pick and choose. You can't have a perfect world. Nothing's perfect. It's
Well,
just
that's my whole argument against, like, it's not a decentralization, because I think decentralization is extremely important when you're building a place like this, because that's why people are interested in cryptocurrency in the first place. They want decentralized finance, right? They don't want any specific government or anything like that to own a portion of, like, own and be in charge of their finances. They don't. They want that freedom, which we should have and should have access to as like people of the world. However, there are certain things and certain like pieces, I guess, tied into it where there needs to be some sort of centralization. You need to have laws in place. You need to have things that are in place. Otherwise, it's gonna continue to be the place it is, where there's gonna be continuous like people that are gonna find the small people that launder money, the small amount of people in the space that launder money, find the small amount of people in space that are actually rugging people, and then use those as a caveat to not grow within the NFT space, to not grow for crypto, because that's what people use. That's what governments use as a way to scare people away.
And then it's gonna also can be their excuse to can pretty much just destroy any possible kind of expansion of kind of the space with, see what happened at OpenSea, there's insider trading going on, we need to shut down everything. So just like you said, you kind of have to you can't get fully decentralization, but also I don't believe in fully centralization. I think a good balance in between both can help kind of any project or collection kind of prosper
exactly
in the right way.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I'm personally excited for when it comes to the Elrond marketplace that's being built, because it's being built by competent developers and builders like that helped to build this blockchain in the first place. So they're helping build a competent marketplace that's going to be safe. That things will happen, I'm sure. Everyone's going to have growing pains, but it's much more central, especially because like and you can look it up. There's some cool stuff that's being built with eGold which is the cryptocurrency, and the actual Romanian government, where Romania is where this blockchain was actually built and created. So look into that. It's pretty cool. There's some stuff happening in terms of real world value, which is why I really like the L1 blockchain as well. But it's a lot to kind of delve into.
Yeah, kind of. It's really interesting to kind of think about what the future holds for a lot of networks and all that stuff. But talking about the future, what does the future look like for you? Like, what are you planning on building and kind of expanding through either your podcasting or maybe your crypto or even art or NFTs? Like, what's the future look like for you? What are you focusing on?
I hope to continue to build on our brand for podcasting first and foremost. I'd like to have more podcasts under our umbrella. Maybe we're basically building like a kind of a collective of podcasts, and from a variety of different genres and flavors of what people like and what people are interested in. We even have a Twitch stream channel that we play games on and play like Magic, or we'll play like Rocket League or whatever's like going on. And we want to continue to kind of build that and grow that. Like, we have a couple podcasts that are kind of in the scope. One that we're looking at that I'm actually really excited about. And I won't be hosting it, but it'll be my co-host Danny, that runs the Weekly D. He'll be hosting a podcast called Immigrant Mentality that he'll be doing with his fiance, where they talk about immigration and immigration reform, and just conversations about, the process, different stories and experiences from both like a right-wing perspective and a left-wing perspective, as well as a central perspective. And so they're going to be going into a lot of that. I would love to have a fully bilingual at some point.
Oh, wow, that'd be
that's kind of a goal. Yeah,
that'd
I
be
have
awesome.
a lot of my friends speak Spanish and stuff, and I think it'd be really cool to have like a cool bilingual podcast, because especially in Texas, a lot of the Hispanic community, especially like the Mexican community there, speaks a lot of English and Spanish bilingual. It's kind of like a little bit of that, but you can kind of understand what they're saying because they're speaking both at the same time. But it's really cool, and we want to bring more to that. As for Natural Born Degenz, I plan to be doing this as long as I'm able to. And I mean that in the sense that I would love to do this for years. I would love to do this and retire doing it, to be honest with you. I don't know what the future holds necessarily for the NFT space as a whole, but we want to keep building, and we want to keep creating, and we want to keep innovating and trying new things. Like, we're about to release our second series of mints, which drops, I think it might be dropping tomorrow, to be honest with you.
The day we're recording this on June 8th, so that will have minted on June 9th. Obviously, this episode will be released a couple weeks, a little bit after that. But
more than likely, they'll still be able to mint. So if you haven't minted a Gullible Seagull, go check out the Elrond Network and go mint yourself a Gullible Seagull. The thought process, it was supposed to be kind of potentially a surprise mint. We wanted to kind of just like surprise our audience and our people with a really cool, drop. Like, it kind of helps prevent like hackers and bots from jumping in and taking all of your stuff, especially when your utility is built around a ton of people owning it.
Yeah.
So we just kind of wanted to do something kind of fun and silly and kind of keep up with our brand. You know what I mean?
Giving power back to the community. I love it.
Exactly. So we're doing that. We're getting ready to drop the seagulls pretty soon, because the only reason it might move out a little bit, but we really wanted it done on June 9th, so 6/9, and then of course start minting at 0420 UTC, which is like 12:30 in the US on Eastern time. So that's kind of like the idea. So we wanted to kind of fit in with the 69 420 to kind of just keep up with like the silliness of it. And they're going to be minting like the first 500 at like 0.01 e-gold, I think, for the first 500, which is like $15.
Oh wow.
So we're just going to...
That's dope. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that.
For sure, man. But they're fun. Like, they're basically... So this is the second series, being that they're still very silly, very memeable. They are a bunch of seagulls that were raised by hawks. Specifically a hawk named... Well, he's a falcon. He's Butch the Falcon. And so they are these really kind of like alpha, kind of really goofy, big-chested like seagulls that are just like doing like a hawk dive bomb. And they have like a bunch of on them too, which is pretty cool. But they have a pretty cool little mechanism that we're working on called flocking, which is a part of our not gonna make it build, which basically the more seagulls you own in a wallet, the higher percentage of NGMI that you actually earn per day. So like you can earn like a portion, like let's say like you have like 10, then you're earning like, this many, like 1,500, 1,200 like NGMI, and then you mint like 20, then you're making like this many. So collecting more is the kind of the benefit. It'll benefit you, especially if you jump into our auctions, which eventually, by the end of the year, hopefully we'll have it set up as a full auction house, like an auction marketplace where you could be betting and bidding on like 20 different ones at a time. Like that's the goal
so
long term.
cool.
Like long
Yeah.
term, that's the goal. Right now we're doing 3 at a time. So if you go on our Discord, and eventually they'll be on our website, that's where you'll be able to do it. And that's kind of where we're wanting to move away from Discord as a whole. Not necessarily just for like the community base, but just because it's a lot easier to just go straight to your own. Have everything in one place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where you can mint, where you can stake, where you can headlock, where you can flock, like all that stuff. It'll all be integrated into our website.
Awesome. I'm really excited for the future of kind of all your endeavors as a whole. I think I wish you the best of luck, and I'm really confident that you can be successful in whatever you want to do. So that's really cool.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, but before we kind of head out here today, I think I've learned so much about you, not only what you do, but kind of what you're interested in and kind of your future prospects for what you're working on right now. I have one more question for you today, but before I ask that, I kind of want to give you the floor and be able to tell the audience today where they can find you on social media, where they can find your podcast, where they can find your collective, where they can find your collections as well. So yeah,
Cool.
I'll just kind of give you the floor and go ahead.
Sweet. So you can actually follow me on all my social media at It's That Guy Kyle. So ITSTHATGUYKYLE. It's That Guy Kyle on both Instagram and Twitter. Don't find me on Facebook because I don't want you to. So stay away from my Facebook because I just share memes on there unless you really like that. You can also follow the Natural Born Degenz page. It's under Natural Degenz on Twitter. Our actual thing here is the at natural NATURALDEGENZ. You'll have a unicorn there, which is our logo, and that's where you can find us there. And then you can also jump on our website, which is going to be naturalborndegenz.art. So naturalborndegenz.art. And that's going to be where you can mint, stake, you can take a look at the team, you could take a look at our brown paper, our roadmap, kind of where we're going, what we're doing, when we're doing it, and expect a full revamp. If you're seeing it with the fridge, it's not fully revamped yet, but it's going to be. But that's where you can find us there. And yeah, you can also feel free to follow us. Like we have all of our social media kind of linked on that page for any of the creators, devs, anything like that. So if you ever want to kind of take a look and meet some of those people, that's the best way to do it. I do recommend, if you are interested in going through the Elron network, I do recommend downloading the Maiar app, the MAIAR. That is just honestly the best wallet I've ever used. And it works. It's Eagle built basically, but you can also, of course, buy Ethereum and Bitcoin on it as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for letting the audience know where they can find you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that want to check you out after this podcast, especially since this conversation's gone really well, and I'm excited that we're kind of becoming friends in the crypto space and acquaintances. It's good to talk to someone that has similar interests as well as like a similar history inside the space. But before we do head out today, I want to thank you again for coming on. But I do have the final question for you, and I ask this to every guest that comes on the podcast, and that is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
If I could have any superpower, I like personally the power of I don't want to see the future necessarily, because I like to kind of be surprised about what happens.
Yeah.
Ooh. Let me think. Honestly, I think I'd really like the power to just be able to fly at like breakneck speeds.
That would be really
Generally
cool.
without being
Just
hurt, because
no
I'd like to
transportation cost ever.
yeah, just be able to travel wherever I want. Inexpensive. Pick up,
Yeah.
you want dinner in Italy? I got you. I'm gonna pick up some dinner real quick and come back. I'll be back in an hour. Like like things like that. Like I think it would be a really cool power.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I tend to agree with that. Just never having to ever plan for like commute times would be dope. It's just like, oh, I'm ready to go. Boom, here. that would be
Yeah,
really nice. But
I
yeah,
agree.
I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me for this seemingly a little bit over an hour interview. I'm really happy and excited to post it. Obviously, if you're listening to this right now, it's been posted, but I'm excited to get it out there and let everyone know about what you're doing with your projects and everything. And also, I want to thank the viewers listening today. It's weird to say viewers, but I guess I'll say I want to thank the listeners for listening today. You all are the whole reason while we were here. And if you all have made it to the end of this podcast, it's been pretty long. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. And yeah, just continue to support. And if you want to support us here at the NFT Nation podcast, feel free to follow us on our social medias. Our link tree is going to be in the show notes, as well as Kyle's and the Natural Degenz kind of whole social media. So all of that will be in the show notes. But if you want to support us, feel free to follow us on our social medias. It is at NFT_Nation_podcast. That is on all of the social medias, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to send us a message there, or just kind of like our content and continue to follow us that way. But also, if you want to go even further than that, feel free to leave 5 stars on Spotify. It really helps us grow the channel, just because even though we are small here, and when Spotify sees that we are getting rated 5 stars, they kind of get the notice that, hey, we're small here, but the content that's coming out is pretty good and people enjoy it. Also, just feel free to share this episode with a friend. If you want to show one of your friends or family about Kyle and all the stuff he does, feel free to just send them the link. It's pretty easy. I do it all the time. So yeah, I just want to thank you all again for listening. And Kyle, do you want to say anything before you head out here?
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for even taking the time to listen to this. I think it was awesome. I think it was really cool. And honestly, shout out to Michael for making something really, really cool with NFT Nation podcast. And I forgot to mention, check out the Weekly D podcast and A Nightmare on Podcast Street. Those are my 2 podcasts that I do. You can also check out Accidental Chaos at Accidental Chaos 69. That's our Twitch as well. We do a ton of streams as much as we can. But yeah, feel free to check those out as well. But yes, big thanks to you for letting me jump on and especially as somebody from a completely different blockchain I don't heard too much about. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I'm always willing to learn new stuff, and I'm happy to get the information out there. So yeah, guys, I think that's going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening, and have a good one, guys.
Peace.